Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with all of you today about why engaging voters is a year-round effort. I also wanted to say thank you to everyone who put this conference together. It was awesome to be a part of some of the planning sessions and hear the amazing ideas and work with Rose. As Aaliyah said, I'm Debi Lombardi and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of partner engagement at nonprofit Vote. Just to give you a little bit of background on what we do, we are a 501c3 organization founded by a consortium of state nonprofit associations and national nonprofit networks. We were founded in 2005 by the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, who really thought that it was important for us to be able to partner with America's nonprofits to help the people they serve participate and vote. Um, we've taken this mission to mean that it's important for us to be able to work with all of these human service-based nonprofits. And I joined the team a couple of years ago and have really enjoyed my time here. So to kick it off, we talked a lot about the landscape that we're working in this morning, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to point out there's some things that we know. We know that democracy is distorted by gaps in voter participation. We know we cannot rely on political actors, specifically candidates, to ensure representative democracy. And we know that voter-friendly policies are good, but they are not the only thing that helps us make sure people are able to vote in elections. We also know that lack of voter contact fuels gaps. Voters who don't show up at the polls are labeled as unlikely, and as such, they're not contacted by campaigns about voting because campaigns are really focused on people who they think will already turn out or who they think are likely to turn out for them. They're not focused on everyone who could potentially vote. Without critical voter contact and information, these people are less likely to vote, and it fuels this kind of negative feedback loop as the cycle repeats itself. So the question I pose to you all, as we've talked about it a little bit this morning, are what are some of the things that healthcare providers can do to change this cycle? Feel free to drop things in the chat. While you all are thinking, one of the things we can point out is that healthcare providers can intervene. Healthcare providers, nonprofits, and other organizations rooted in the community can intervene, bringing people into the process and make it more likely they will receive election information in the future. Someone said order a healthy democracy kit from Vot-ER. So I think that's a great thing to point out here. Educate others and engage people in tough conversations, definitely. Create dialogue within health settings. These are all amazing things. Ask during the intake process. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. So we also know that when engaged by organizations rooted in the community, potential voters were 11 percentage points more likely to cast a ballot than comparable populations not engaged by nonprofits and similar organizations. So this is a big number. It can be up to 11%. This isn't always the case that they turn out at this much higher rate, but it's important to note that if someone wasn't contacted in campaigns, but they were contacted by their healthcare provider or by another trusted messenger they know in their community, this drastically increases the likelihood that they're going to vote. So the next question I wanted to pose, which some of you have gotten into already, is why are healthcare providers effective at voter engagement? Some things that we know about why you all are effective is you have an established presence in the communities where these people are also based, so you understand and are likely to know a lot of what may be going on in their communities. You hold trusted relationships with the people that you serve. There clearly has to be a trust for them to be able to come and see you. And you have access to members of our communities that are traditionally overlooked by campaigns. Some other things people have dropped in the chat that I think are awesome. Your non-traditional messengers, which I think is a great thing to point out. You're not campaign folks who are just dropping in, encouraging people to vote right before an election with your own agenda. You have a more personal relationship with the individuals and the community. I think that's amazing. You aren't part of the system. I like that a lot, and I think that's important to point out. Um, and healthcare providers maintain a trustful and welcome relationship with each person. So I think this came up in the chat in a few different ways, but I really wanted to talk about it. Um, as healthcare providers, you are trusted messengers. We're over a year into a pandemic that has disrupted hundreds of thousands of lives and taken others, and the importance of healthcare providers and their role in safety, physical, mental, and civic health has never been clearer. As trusted messengers in your communities, you're uniquely positioned to offer voter information to the patients you see every day. I myself have a voter engagement story from going to my healthcare provider. I went to my primary care provider last year for a checkup, and I was talking to her about what she does, and she goes, "Oh, can you get my colleague registered to vote? She's in Virginia." And I said, "Sure, I can help with that." And so I talked to her colleague about voter registration, and then I worked with my primary care provider who was like, "Can you share more information with us?" And I was like, "Definitely." And so now when I go in, I bring in like state fact sheets about upcoming elections, and leave them with her, and then patients and other providers who need more information can grab those fact sheets. So I think there's a huge role that you all can play in this. So getting to the heart of what this presentation is why should we engage patients as voters year round? I'd love for you all to put thoughts in the chat because you've shared a lot of great things so far. But I'll start off with saying engaging voters is an investment in the communities that you live and work in. It is not a transaction. Year-round engagement adds value to the community. And I think, there's going to be a few other things I'll say about why engaging voters year-round is important. But really at the heart of it is that people don't want to feel like they're just a transaction. They don't want to feel like they're just being told to vote because someone cares about their specific candidate winning, whether they're that attached to them or not. People want to feel like they're being invested in, and that voting is an investment in their community. And that's a huge reason why engaging voters year round is important. The other reason is it gives you the opportunity to meet people where they're at. This is really critical to voter registration. Last year during the pandemic, a lot of our focus was on supporting the food pantries that we worked with because they were able to provide voter registration to folks who were seeking assistance either with SNAP or other food benefits, and we're able to just be like, take your voter registration form with you, and if and when you come back, bring it back to us. So people are not always ready to take in new information, especially when seeking medical attention or other services. And having information available consistently allows them to access when they need it and when it's right for them, so that they're able to register to vote at a time that is convenient for them. Secondly, people may need to update their registration at any time. Our lives do not rotate around elections, contrary to what campaigns might think. We move, our names may change, and other life events that may require updating voter registration or election information uh, do not revolve around election time. Having a voter registration available serves as a reminder that they may need to update their information at any time. I think, many of you all know this, but this is always a good time to uh, remind people that even if you move across the street, people will need to update their registration. And a lot of people are like, I'm still in the same precinct. Why would I have to do that? And this is a great reminder that like, no matter where you move, even if it's super close, you have to update your voter registration. It also builds credibility in the community. So one of the things that campaigns do that don't often build trust is, and you all have seen this happen around major elections, people show up and they really, really push for different areas that they find competitive to make elections happen and try to turn out a bunch of people. And people that live in those communities or in like Pennsylvania or Ohio may receive calls all day, every day leading up to an election, and then they just disappear because they're not focused on those elections anymore. So, unlike campaigns, healthcare providers can show that they're investing in the civic health of a community through year round voter engagement efforts. And this is what really boosts and lifts turnout. Also, I see that Rose T just put into the chat a place where people can check their registration through Vot-ER's website. So, that's a great thing to share with folks too. You can also ensure patients are prepared for upcoming elections. So I've seen this one dropped in the chat a few times. Local and state elections often have less publicity than national elections, but they're happening all the time. They're happening this year across the country. There are thousands of local elections. You can check out Ballotpedia for more information. Continuous reminders make it less likely than voters may miss important deadlines. Significant people don't participate in elections because they missed a voter registration deadline recently. And that is often because voter registration deadlines feel very arbitrary, especially for places where they're more than more than 4 weeks out from the election, where folks may not be you think the election is in November. Why do I have to register in October or even late September in order for me to be prepared for that? It's just not at the top of people's minds. And local and state elections happen at various times throughout the year, which means that they may not always fit exactly with this, what we think of as an election time, which is always the first Tuesday of November for general elections and often on a Tuesday for primary elections. Local elections may happen on various days of the week and at different times. And so keeping people up to date on that is really important. So looking in the chat, there's been some awesome answers. In some states, if you haven't participated in an election, you have to up in election, you may be kicked off the voter roll. So you have to update that. That's really important. Being consistent with the message. Yes, I love that someone added that. If you're offering it all the time, there's always nonpartisan information. It makes people more comfortable with engaging with you around this. Keep voting in people's minds. Yes, it feels less stressful if you're able to reference that voting is happening and you can get people ready. Sometimes people need to hear information a few times before they're comfortable enough to join in. I think this is a great point as well that someone dropped in the chat. A big reason for this is especially with like signing official forms. If you're a young voter or a new voter, you may be apprehensive to do that. And so you may need to hear a few times and you may need to talk it out with someone about what that looks like and before they're comfortable with this. There's no specific best time to engage people in voting because issues do not go away after elections. I think we've talked a lot this morning about how issues in your local community are really important to engage in. We'll talk tomorrow a little bit about how you can engage in local elections, but also if there's not local elections, what are other ways you can get involved? And so using those issues as a way to talk about voting is also really important. If people are coming to see you, often healthcare is at the top of their minds. It's an issue that everyone has an opinion about and cares about. And it's a great way to start talking about voting. Someone else put related to this is governing happens in between elections as well. Voters can be encouraged to engage in providing personal testimony and lifting up issues that matter to them to support becoming a law. So even if someone isn't able to vote right away and they may not be able to make that connection between the voter registration form they're filling out and the election that's coming up in 9 months, you can talk to them about how it's great that they updated their voter registration and also maybe they want to get involved in city council or other local things that are going on and sharing their opinion and helping shape what their city or their community looks like. Seeing a lot about local elections. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing so much information about why you think this is important. I just wanted to highlight a bunch of those because I listed a few things, but we think voter engagement is important year round because it really helps build all this trust in the community. It also becomes an expected part of service, which I think is related to some of the things that folks have said. Year-round voter engagement shows your commitment to the community and makes an expected part of service. If something feels arbitrary or out of place, people are going to be less likely to trust it. This also helps. I think nonpartisanship is a concern for a lot of people. This also helps maintain the perception of partisanship because when you're offering it year round, it doesn't feel tied to a campaign or a specific election or something like that. So I want to thank you all for listening to me talk about why voter engagement is year round. I know this took a little less time than expected, so please feel free to ask questions. But I also wanted to share that we have some resources along with all of Vot-ER's amazing materials, which you should definitely check out if you haven't. We have a really large resource library to help folks think about this, especially if they want to go a little bit beyond voter registration and are thinking about voter engagement campaigns. Like being nonpartisan, mobilizing voters, engaging with candidates or candidate forums, and advocacy. So thank you for having me, and thank you all for being really active participants in the chat.
Looks like we have some good questions coming in. So Debbie, if you keep an eye on the chat, feel free to type some questions in.
Awesome. So there's one question that came in that says, do you have any guidance or support for helping those who have intellectual challenges around voting? I think this is a great question. We partner with a group called the ARC, and they provide voting information that is written in as simple language as possible, as well as assistance for helping folks who are dealing with intellectual challenges when it comes to voting. As soon as I'm done presenting, I'll look that up for you and I'll drop their link into the website. They have their materials regularly and have really good assistance. I would also say the National Disability Rights Network focuses on this as well, both in how voting is conducted for folks who are facing intellectual or physical disabilities, as well as providing materials that are accessible to people who are facing physical or intellectual disabilities.
Debbie, while you're here, maybe one of the things that you can talk to us about is the incredible organizing you guys have done around National Voter Registration Day, because that is in one day of the year, probably the most productive civic engagement opportunity. And we've learned a lot from you all with Civic Health Month, but can you give a little bit about the sort of what National Voter Registration Day is about, and sort of just drop the seed for our providers thinking about this?
I would love to. So I didn't put it in our slides because the partner sign up form is not open yet. But if you haven't heard of National Voter Registration Day, it happens the 4th September of every Tuesday. And it was founded in 2012 to help millions of people across the country be able to get registered and vote. So every year we plan this huge event where we have premier partners like Vot-ER, who have been amazing in the past, and community partners like yourselves who can just sign up to say that you're wanting to register to vote. You tell us how many people you think you're going to register, and then we send you posters and stickers and materials that can help you both promote the day and voter registration in a nonpartisan way. Last year, we registered over 1.5 million people for the election in one day with the support of a lot of people. We had over 100 premier partners and over 4,500 community partners that participated. And we're just so excited about it every year. I'll also drop that in the chat when we're done, and you can read about what happened last year. But we also work with other groups who do civic holidays. We're producing a civic holiday calendar with National Voter Education Week and Vote Early Day, which are also great opportunities in October and November to engage people. And this year is a really good year. If you are kind of new to this and you're not sure It's a good year to jump in and learn about it with your local elections and get really involved in the process. And then, we always think it's like a good training ground too for major elections coming up as you start to think about your midterm elections. That'll be happening in 2022, and a really good way to engage your community. Local elections, for presidential elections, they say one of the biggest things for turnout is voter registration specifically. And in local elections, they say that's really important, but also so is the education piece and just being aware of what the local election is, who's on the ballot for it, and what those offices mean. Because I don't know about you, but I'm from Montana and I lived in a town that had a city council, and that's how it was set up, and that's what you got to vote in all the time. But because I was a little bit of a political nerd, I read a book on how all the different city governments are formatted. And so there's like county commissioner and all these different types of offices that each city is constructed differently. So even providing voter education information about what that looks like can be really incredibly helpful for people who are trying to figure out how each office affects them.
It's incredible. And I want to lift up one point that you just made there, Debbie, which is that really, if our healthcare providers want to begin to do this work in their clinics, their health centers, their hospitals, now's the time. And the reason why is because, as this gets closer and closer to the upcoming elections, it can seem like this is not just a service that we provide our patients and not a service that we provide our clients, but it's something that's done, for an upcoming election, like a big presidential or midterm election. So now is the time to act. And really, really, really just incredible work that you all were able to do, Debbie. 1.5 million in one day is just unreal in terms of the numbers of folks registered to vote. Really, really incredible. We have one last question here, Debbie, before we let you go, and that's from Stephen Ing. Any thoughts on en masse voter registration via online meetings given the pandemic?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Actually, one of the resources on our National Voter Registration Day site talks both about how you can conduct online voter registration as well as what it looks like to do safe in-person voter registration. I will say that often online voter registration doesn't get as many people. They may get caught partially in the process, but I believe Vot-ER has some tools around this that could be incredibly helpful. So speaking of the tool that Rose dropped in, saying about where you could check your voter registration, if you have a good online platform where people can go and either register to vote or check voter registration, I think that's great. One of the things we encouraged last year and encourage people to think about is if you want to have like a fun Zoom party where people can learn about voter registration, awesome. Think about your music playlist, like Alistair's music playlist for today. That can get people excited. Be prepared to answer some questions. And just know that the more places you share it and the more you talk about it, the more likely you're going to get people registered to vote. Which is, part of what we talked about with the year-round voter engagement is if you have consistent online meetings with the same group of people that could use some of this information, continue to bring up how to register to vote and what those tools are online that people can use there and things like that.